Arizona, homeowner's best friend.
As we're making our way through our gardening with elegance topic today, we kind of talked about sustainability. What's sustainable for you to maintain at your home? So now that let's build off of that. We've determined what is sustainable for us. Where do we start?
So for me, it's designing for an optimal workflow to make it easy on yourself. I mean, I like when I take a journey, I don't want a dead end. You know, no one really plans a journey to have a dead end. They have a destination, and in most cases, there's a return trip. It's like, if I'm going to plan a trip to Disneyland, I'm going to get a return flight, right? I'm going to start with that. I'm going to know that I'm going to be returning from that. So it's not a dead end destination. And so your yard is a similar thing. It's to make it for optimal workflow, you want to create kind of a pathways that loop back to your starting point. So rather than having a dead end and then a return flight, you're actually creating a loop. And so I like loops. I like creating pathways. And if you go to any major botanical gardens, you'll find that creating those loops are also very conducive to feeling more at ease about life and everything too. But then it also makes it a lot easier to maintain, to check on things, to be able to make your little loop and walk around and check how things are doing. And so for me, an optimal workflow is to understand the full life cycle of any plant I've got. So if I know for a fact that I've got trees, and if I know my trees are going to need to be trimmed, those tree trimmings are need to be thrown into the garbage can at some point. And so I just think of the full life cycle. It's going to end up having to be harvested or trimmed out or whatever's going to happen. And so I want to make sure that I can easily flow whatever's trimmed off into a compost bin or into my garbage bins or my green waste containers easily. And so having a pathway that allows you to get to there is one of the ideas. So one great idea that we've implemented on many of our designs for agriscaping is to have a path that's wide enough that the trash bins can be rolled right to the spot that you're having to deal with. And so you can literally roll it along your pathway and throw it immediately into that spot, rather than what a lot of people do is that they got their garbage can and then they go and they have their little bucket, and then they go and they take their bucket to the spot and they fill it, and then they go and they're going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And we're like, well, what if you just had a pathway that gets you all the way to everywhere with the end goal, which is your garbage container or your green waste container. So you just take it along your pathway, you throw all the material in there, and then you get to the end point and it's where it began. And you're done. And that makes just the workflow a lot easier. So if you're into composting like I am, and a lot of people are, and you're growing food, having a compost bin, an active compost bin, good idea. Having that in a shady spot closer to your house, so it's kind of the end of your typical routine path. And all of you know this, you get to your house, you got some yard, you find yourself wandering through it, and you kind of find your own little routine path. The ways you get from point A to point B. And it might be different than you thought at first. And so after you've been in your yard for a little bit, if you got your all designed thing and you follow where you go, then make that maybe a little bit more intentional and place along that path the things you need. So a water source, be able to wash things off. Make sure you have a hose bib that's within 50 feet or 100 feet. I mean, never more than 100 feet apart between hose bibs. So if you've got a very large yard, we definitely recommend for optimal workflow making sure that you have a hose bib at 100-foot increments around your space. And that makes it easy not only to wash things off, but to be able to water things if they need a little spot watering, to clean things out if you've got a lot of pavers and things like that around, so you can pressure wash that on an occasional basis. I mean, thankfully, the heavens gave us a bit of a pressure wash this week with the hail for some of you as well. But that doesn't happen very often, just as we've all experienced in Arizona. And so you might want to just accommodate and make sure that you have a resource available, which is a good hose bib.
Rosie on the house, every Arizona homeowner's best friend.